Does manual treasury management and operations have your crypto business stuck in the slow lane? Scale up and speed ahead with Fireblocks, the #1 platform for crypto operations and trading pros that makes custody, settlement, and rebalancing quick and easy. Visit fireblocks.com to learn more. This episode is brought to you by Coinbase Prime, an integrated solution that provides institutional investors with an advanced trading platform, secure custody, and prime services to manage all of their crypto assets in one place. Futuristic companies like Tesla and MicroStrategy have used Coinbase's comprehensive investing platform to execute some of the largest trades in the industry. Learn more by visiting coinbase.com/prime to get started today. Eager to make more informed decisions around crypto using data you can trust? Chainalysis demystifies cryptocurrency by providing industry-leading compliance, market intelligence, and investigation support for all crypto assets for organizations like Gemini, Crypto.com, and BlockFi. Maximize your potential with the leading blockchain data platform by visiting Chainalysis.com now. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Scoop. I'm your host, Frank Chaparro, Director of News at The Block, and joining me on the other side of the mic with his plushie in hand, there it is, donning his McDonald's cap, unsurprisingly, is my very good friend and our guest for today, Darren Lau, a prolific writer and educator in the space, vis-a-vis the Daily Ape. I'm sure you're familiar with it if you've been in the space for a while. And a venture capital investor in his own right. Darren, you came from Spartan Group. You kind of went off and have done your own thing. How's life? How's life treating you?
Hey man, life's been pretty good. Just been chilling. Just got back from traveling like 2 months. Was in Europe for a bit, and like just meeting with people. Was there for like the Lisbon conference as well as just like NFT NYC. Then just travel along. Yeah, life's been pretty chill so far. Mostly just taking a bit of a break from the markets a bit, just catching up on like secondary markets, researching and just like catching up on all the reading. There's so much stuff to read every day, so just catching up on that.
I know it's really difficult to kind of keep up to date with what's going on in this market, even as someone whose job it is to write about it. That's my experience. I want to do something a bit unusual. We've been having guests come on the show from different verticals. We had a trader on. We had an executive from Jump, the market making firm, and now we have a venture capitalist to get a sense not just of what you're noticing out there in the market, but how does the job work and how does it work for different types of assets, right? When you're making a bet in NFTs, it's probably different from when you're trying to make a token bet. So walk us through, like, what does your day-to-day look like? Are you sourcing deals? Are you reading? What's the day-to-day of a crypto venture investor?
Yeah, happy to go through that. So like for me, my day-to-day, since like given that I also run the Daily Ape, which is a Telegram channel where I post like daily news updates. So like my mornings usually consist of me going through Twitter, looking for what to include in the post for the day, as well as going through my emails, going through some of the newsletters, going through some of the correspondence, whatever to like respond to, as well as going through Telegram groups. So I have a few Telegram groups where I'm active in, just with some friends where we share all of us, so seeing any updates from there. And then that's usually my morning. So like going through the Daily Ape stuff, and like in the afternoons, that's when I usually look through any podcast updates where any existing podcasts that I have, if there are any issues, then I look to help them out if anything, and then if just keeping up with what's happening there. So I tend to have like calls with them probably weekly or monthly basis on like seeing how things are going and seeing whether there's anything that they need help with. And then I also spend most of the afternoons as well going through some of the deal flows that we've sourced. So the way that my fund works with my brothers is that there's three of us. So like I'm usually the one doing the deal sourcing, then Daryl is usually the one doing the filtering. So he's usually the one giving his input on the deals, but what he thinks of it and stuff like that. And Zach, our older brother, he's the one usually providing the portfolio company support. So like given my role is mostly on deal sourcing, I'm usually the one like just talking to other analysts from other funds, or just keeping an eye out for like projects that are popping up on the timeline and so on. And then Usually that's how my afternoons, my evenings are spent. Usually either going through podcast support, going through deal flow, and also just going through what I post on the channel on the daily basis as well. So there's it's a lot of reading, lot of calls as well,
A lot of Telegram
a lot of
messages,
messages,
sifting through Telegram a lot,
Discords as well.
Discords.
Just trying to filter all the noise really.
So whenever we have people on from more of the traditional venture capitalist side, they like to talk their book a bit and say that they're unique because they are adding value to their portfolio companies. It's a common talking point. What does it mean though? What does it mean when you're, picking up the phone for one of your portfolio companies or a project you've invested in and they're asking for your guidance? What are they exactly asking for? Are they maybe deploying a new feature and they want to see if you have a pleasant experience with it, or is it something else?
Yeah, so I think I did a thread previously before on like just evaluating VCs based on this, on like how to like evaluate based what they say, what kind of value add they provide. So like some of the ways that I guess they provide value as that also one of course is based on feedback. So like just looking at how they're doing things, so not just like the way the UI looks like or how the UX is as well, but also like looking at how intuitive using the whole platform is. That's one thing. I just like providing feedback on how to like make it more easier to use, how to make it more like convenient for someone to go through as well. So that's one of feedback is probably one of the most important things that a VC does, given that they've seen so many projects already. So like they roughly know what the market is used to and so on. Then another area that I would say is more on capital support as well. So like given that venture capitalists usually have like a big they usually have like big funds as available as well. So like if, for example, project needs help with bootstrapping, usually funds are happy to do that at a moment's notice as well. They can just deploy whatever capital is needed to like bootstrap the protocol. And then also like looking at track record as well. So I guess like given that some funds are more active in like certain sectors, so like usually when a new project is raising and that in that sector that the VC is specialized in, then they usually approach these VCs instead, because like then these VCs have like other industry experience that can help them out with, which should be helpful for a project that's starting out and like just trying to break into the space. So I think those probably some of the areas that I would say
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
in general, like network as well. Like for example, like if I can definitely connect you with other VCs in the space, or like I can connect you with other projects that might have synergies with you as well. Given that I have a wide portfolio as well, so I can definitely connect them with any other portfolio company that might be synergistic with them.
So let's maybe double click on the sourcing aspect. It sounds like such an ambiguous or hard to define job, right?
Yeah.
It's mostly like you said, talking with just it's just talking. So it's kind of like it's maybe hard to explain the science or alchemy behind sourcing a deal, but let's try to do it anyway. You want to get on a cap table.
Mhm.
How do you do it when literally everyone and their mother now is launching a fund?
Yeah. So first of all, to easily get on the cap table, like you have to be like one of the first few people to see it. So like the way that I go about sourcing deal, there's a few sources where I use to like just look at deals. So one of them, like I mentioned earlier, was just talking to other analysts at funds. So I try to build as close a relationship as possible with a bunch of analysts. So I have a wide network there, and they usually share whatever deals that they're looking at there. Because like most of the time, what we are seeing right now still in the space is that even though everyone is trying to be a fund, like no one's taking the whole round. Usually they're sharing the rounds with other VCs, so they're always looking for value add investors to add into the round. Another way that I source for deals is also like going through like Twitter, so like seeing whatever is being talked about on the timeline. So like whatever new project that pops up from there, that's where I usually go through. I have a few bots slash channels set up as well to like just scrape Twitter, scrape mirrors, scrape Discord and so on, just like see what new projects are out there. It's a lot of noise, but like there's some channels that like help out with like sourcing out what's the hottest projects. For example, like there's this website called Hot New Crypto, so they definitely help provide a lot of like value, like alpha, and like finding new projects as well. And then another way is also like from inbound as well. So like for example, like given that my Telegram channel, the Daily Ape, has grown quite substantially as well. So like sometimes projects will also reach out to me and say like, hey, we're launching this project, can we get some advice? Or hey, we think that this announcement could be useful in the channel. So like there's a bunch of inbound from there too. So I think that's a few ways that I source new projects as well. So that's how I find them early on. And even then, like if I find a project later on and I want to get in the cap table, usually I try to like just have a chat with them and see whether how either provide feedback based on like how the current cap table looks like, or like just provide feedback slash advice on like what I think they can improve on, or how I can fit into their round and like just provide my value there, I guess. But it's really just having a call and just seeing how we can click and like how we can connect with each other as well.
Part of it, you've figured out a way to automate. Content plays a really important role, I think, and you are kind of coming from that angle through the Daily Ape. So many venture capitalists are now trying to figure out how they can stand up a content operation. I think like Paradigm was trying to hire a managing editor. I know that a lot of investors in this space are trying to figure out ways to like engage with community, because community in crypto is so important.
Yep.
And being in the thick of the memery is almost this unquantifiable value add to an extent.
Yeah, so I think definitely like there's a lot of funds out there that are trying to do like media arms, like trying to have like more content out there. For example, like A16Z, they have their own media arm of things, they have their own blogs, they have constant blogs about topics that are about Web3 and so on, and like they also have like constant threads on like projects that invested in. 20-minute VC, they started off as a podcast and they became a venture arm as well. So like there's all these venture arms popping up that all have their own media arms, and like all these other new funds are like trying to compete with these people, because like, at the end of the day, usually projects, when they want to find a VCs, they also want help with the marketing side of things. So like having, I guess for me, like having the Daily Ape as well as like my Twitter, where like I shit post a lot, but I also like try to cover what else relevant. Like that's helpful in the way that it does help get projects exposure there too.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm sure like there's an element of connection that you might have with a founder who finds you amusing, in addition to a smart operator in the space. Okay, so sourcing, being out there in the community, creating a presence through content. Now let's try to figure out how do you sift through which deals are going to be ones that you want to put capital into. What do you look for in a project that gives you the confidence to invest in it?
Well, so for there's a few areas for that as well. Most importantly, one is like, so given that we've already invested in quite a few projects already, so like we try not to have any conflicting or like projects that are competitors in any way, because like then if we do invest in competitor, then there's the Chinese wall effect as well, where we can't be as close or supportive as to the portfolio as we want. So like we try to avoid that. Secondly, we also try and look for founders that are trying building things that we want to use. For example, like if it's a I'm usually more attracted to DeFi projects because like, I find more use cases for that. NFTs, I feel like right now are still being explored. The full utilities of NFTs are still being explored. So I'm just seeing how people come up with designs for that. But like I'm not investing too heavily into that. We're also seeing like, for example, like how aware of the market the founder is. So for example, like is he aware of the competitors out there? Is he aware of how the space currently looks like? Is he aware of like what are the competitors in the space doing that they can probably incorporate, or like what they can possibly be better in, for example. And like just seeing the vibes of so with the team as well, like I mentioned, like just seeing whether is this a person that I would be happy to like answer a phone call at 1 a.m. or like even go out for a drink at 1 a.m. just with this person, like just see whether I'll be happy. Because being a venture capitalist in the space, like you're in it for the long term as well. So like even 1 year, 5 years, 10 years down the line, like I want to be able to have a good conversation with this person. Like I want to be able to like just be there for the person as well. That's some of the things that I look into, and also like just seeing what how the project fits in the scheme of things as well. So like seeing whether there is a demand for this product in the space out there, and like if there is a demand, seeing how the market has been receiving, how the market will be receptive of this demand as well, and just seeing how it will fit among with everything else. Like is it something that's short term? Like is it something that's gonna take a few years to play out, or is it gonna be something that will have immediate market fit? So like, that's just some of the areas that I look at.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think you've been relatively heavy in Solana stuff.
Yeah, so
Um, yeah, go ahead.
I guess I've been involved with Solana projects since the first hackathon days. So like back when yeah. So back when Solana first did the hackathon, I reached out to a bunch of the winners from there. So like for example, Mango, Side Options, Orca, didn't invest in them, but just just catching up with them, just seeing how they were thinking of building on Solana. Because like back then, people were frowning upon those building on Solana. They were all still very ETH maxis back then. So like people weren't really exploring the multi chain. But I wanted to see why would someone choose to build on Solana when back then there was almost zero infrastructure back then. So as a result, I did get involved in quite a few projects early on. So from there, just been keeping a close eye on them. I was a judge recently for the Serum Convergence Wormhole Hackathon. So like that's one thing. And I've also been quite close to the team as well. So I just was helping them out previously after I left Spartan for a bit, and then just been closely involved with them since.
Yeah, and so, obviously there's been a lot of issues recently with Solana. Price is down for everything. Bad
Yeah.
price. We check outside, still bad price. Waiting for the devs to do something. What were your were your expectations when you bought in? It sounds like sub dollar. That's sub dollar.
Probably very early on, so like around that area as well. So
Yeah.
sub $3.
Sub was it before the infamous Sam tweet?
Yeah, before the Sam tweet.
I think that's like kind of the BC AD of Solana.
Yeah, exactly.
Before Sam tweet, so BST and PST. So did you expect the growth within the ecosystem to take hold in the way it did? I mean, to go from $1, sub $1, to up to 300, and now somewhere we're around, I think, 100. But what were your expectations for Solana in the short term?
I honestly didn't expect it to grow that quickly, but I feel like there are a few factors that help its growth like tremendously. So like for example, like before the mega unlock of like the tokens, like the market, I think Alameda was scooping up everything OTC. So I had that color from there, like Alameda, CMS, they were all scooping up majority of the tokens OTC. And then I also had the color that when the hackathon came out, then I realized that like people like Multicoin was always championing about how if fees are too expensive and like people need cheaper fees to be able to use DeFi. So that's something that I agreed with, because like I couldn't explain to someone why they had to pay $100 to do a transaction when they can just do it for a few cents on Solana. But like when I was looking at projects from that stage, when there's almost no infrastructure, there's no DAOs even. It was very early on, so I didn't expect such rapid growth. But like I think that the team at Solana has been very proactive in the way that they've been developing as much resources as possible. So like for example, they have this developer academy where they teach like they give like a bunch of resources to like onboard developers as much as possible. And then they also have like hacker houses as well throughout the world. I think they've done a few. So I think right now they're having one in Singapore. They previously had one in LA, I think. And then they're basically having hacker houses all over the world. So they're just getting as much traction, as much marketing as possible. And like I think when Daryl was in New York back in June last year, like he mentioned that a lot of the Web2 guys that he met, a lot of VCs that he met there, they were all talking about how they were in Solana. So I think that that's also another effect, given that they raised like what, some pi related number. They raised a super high round.
Yeah, it was 314 million, I think.
Yeah.
So the way you're describing this is really interesting, because it's making me think of a conversation I had yesterday with he's not a VC, but he's I don't want to like, he is a market participant. I don't want to give too much away about him because he's fairly behind the scenes, but he was talking about how a lot of what he does when he's working with a client is kind of like this gut checking with other market participants. So it's less about almost you're not looking at the code, right? You're not reading the original white paper. Maybe you are, or maybe you get one of your brothers to do it because you can't be bothered. But you get, how do I really know you're Darren, right? So you're not necessarily doing that work. It sounds and maybe you ultimately do it, but it sounds like it starts with, okay, is Sam doing it maybe, or is this VC that I'm close to involved? Do I know people involved? And it's just again like going back and forth. He referred to his own process of due diligence as uh, his consensus mechanism are the people in his network. Does it chalk up to that mostly?
Yeah, so I think definitely because like given that I started off as retail as well, so like I want to see what how the bigger market participants doing. So for example, like what are the VCs, the tier one VCs in the space doing? What are the market makers in the space doing? Like, is there a primary buyer besides me? Basically, something that I want to know. And then like if there is someone that's buying besides me out there, I want to see what, if possible, what's the prices that they are getting in at. So like if I know that these people are interested in and they are basically my buy support, then I feel more confident in like going in as well, because like if all else fails, that means that these guys will have the firepower to like pull me up to support again. That's one way I look at it as well. Like given that I filter through a lot of news every day, like I generally try and spot trends early on as well, seeing what people are getting excited about, seeing what people are talking about frequently as well. So I just from there, like I do manage to identify some projects, some trends, for example. And then like I would say that that does help with like getting some conviction, but also at the end of the day, like it's also based on research that I do after that, like just to follow up, seeing whether is it just hype or is it really there's substance there underneath the hype.
When you look at the landscape now, right, there's a lot of anxiety. I can't
Mm.
even say it about, I don't, it's interesting because crypto just has so much energy, but there's still like, it can get so easily taken aback by whatever macro forces are out there. So I think we dipped below 30 or 40 today. Price again, not good price. But basically, there's a lot of anxiety in the market. We see it in the liquid price of tokens. Bitcoin's below 40,000. Are we starting to see some of that pressure seep into the venture market? I've heard of one big VC step out of a few deals. I know you're going to be there's always going to be the bidder. There's always going to be Darren trying to bid, but are you seeing some folks get more conservative?
So previously, like a month or so ago, like the metaverse gaming projects, they were probably one of the hottest things out there, hottest deals out there for primary deals. I've talked to a few projects recently, like just this week, and they were telling me how like even though these VCs were like committing to the round like a month ago, 2 months ago, but suddenly they're pulling out right now because of how market looks like right now. So like I've definitely seen a lot more VCs pull out of deals, and not just pull out deals, but they're also being much more selective compared to previously. So like back then, you could feel like a lot of VCs were just spraying and praying. So like there's a few projects that were just like there are a few VCs that are doing a lot of like gaming, a lot of guilds projects out there, like just investing in whatever they could find. And I feel like that's become more selective right now. People are getting more sensitive to valuations because like you can see like there's an obvious convergence between public markets and like secondary market, private and public market valuations. Like for example, like it's getting rarer to see like games raised at like 50 million to 100 million valuations, but like we're definitely seeing that lower, thankfully. But like at the same time, like these games that are being raised, like they still take like 2-3 years maybe to like properly develop. So we're seeing how that goes about, because at the end of the day, like I've seen also a lot more appetite for studios rather than just games. So like then I see funds acquiring game studios rather than just games as a standalone. And I think they're definitely being more selective with what they're investing in, I would say, and like just being very sensitive of valuations. Like if they think it's too high, then they just pass, or like they'll negotiate with the founders to like lower it and so on.
Having trouble keeping pace with the crypto boom? When your business is scaling up and your portfolio is growing, you don't want to waste precious time on manual treasury management or settling and rebalancing. Fireblocks can handle that for you with smart, scalable solutions for your crypto business, along with industry-leading security and expertise. They'll take care of the back end so you can focus on the big picture. Visit fireblocks.com to learn more. This episode is brought to you by Coinbase Prime, an integrated solution that provides institutional investors with an advanced trading platform, secure custody, and prime services to manage all their crypto assets in one place. Coinbase Prime fully integrates crypto trading and custody on a single platform and gives clients the best all-in pricing in their network using their proprietary smart order router and algorithmic execution. Futuristic companies like Tesla and MicroStrategy have already used Coinbase's comprehensive investing platform to execute some of the largest trades in the industry. Build a unified investment portfolio with one of the most trusted names in crypto. Learn more by visiting coinbase.com/prime to get started today. Are you eager to make more informed decisions around crypto using data you can trust? Chainalysis is here to help. Chainalysis demystifies cryptocurrency by providing industry-leading compliance, market intelligence, and investigation support for all crypto assets for organizations like Gemini, Crypto.com, and BlockFi. Gain unparalleled visibility and maximize your potential with the leading blockchain data platform by visiting chainalysis.com now. So is the age or the brief era of spray and pray over? Well, not over forever, but it's slowing down at least.
I definitely think it's slowing down. Like even when I'm talking to like friends that are not VCs, but just like retail friends, that they're also saying that they are being more conservative with investments as well. And like if you look at the new launches on secondary market, like they aren't doing the best as well. Like I think at most some of them do like a 2x or something like that. Then they just slow death all the way, slow bleed all the way. I think like people are being more conservative with their capital. I would say they're not just blindly aping into the thing that just because an influencer says it's a good coin, then they blindly ape into it. I think it's being much more careful right now. It's like the age of spray and pray, for now at least, I think it's on a break. I would say it's not an upwardly market, but more really just people being more careful with their capital, because I feel like the past 1.5 years maybe, like it has been probably the best time for someone to make money. So now they're just trying to conserve the money that they made, because market conditions, macro conditions, they aren't the best right now. So it's not easy mode. So it's just people just trying to survive.
Yeah, definitely just trying to survive out there in those mean crypto streets. So maybe we can walk through this phenomenon you're noticing in the gaming world. When you say people are focusing less on games themselves and more about studios, what are we talking about here?
So I'm seeing some funds as well, like they're just basically like acquiring old traditional game studios, and then like they're incorporating Web3/crypto gaming elements to it. So like seeing whether they can incorporate like tokens, or whether they can incorporate like NFTs, and like just take a more Web3 twist on things. Because like these gaming studios that currently exist right now, like most of them have like super experienced game developers that they've done this for so many years, but like they've never really had the crypto side of the crypto knowledge of things. So like these funds are like basically converting them to like crypto games, and like that's what I'm seeing a lot more attention on, a lot more appetite on as well, because like these guys will have more experience compared to like some of the games out there that are completely crypto native guys, but like they have zero game development experience. So, like these projects are these projects probably don't have the experience. Like they need to get the experienced guys to come in. So like the funds are probably looking more into like experienced guys, like who can actually deliver, rather than just post cinematic trailers all the time, but like actually produce good gameplay videos instead.
Less marketing and hype, more
Less marketing
actual,
and hype, more content really.
Yeah, more realness.
I was talking to this project, one of my podcasts, like they were saying like how, so previously this guy, he used to work in a crypto firm, and then like whenever at the crypto fund, like the management team would always set like targets on like roadmaps of things to achieve, and like the crypto guys would just be very, very chill about it. But like when he started a gaming company instead, like he hired all these traditional gaming projects, like all these traditional gaming devs, like even when he set a roadmap, they're all very strict, they're all very systemized, structured to it. So we're seeing a lot more. They were very gung ho about fulfilling all the objectives, like compared to like cryptos. Like I was seeing a lot more experienced people come into the space. So like I think that's definitely a good boost to the ecosystem, and just seeing how it's much more competitive now. Like when I'm talking to my friends that are trying to break into the space, I say it's way more competitive because like all these Ivy Leagues, all these investment bankers, they're all trying to break in right now. So it's way more competitive.
It's pretty wild. I mean, it's probably an interesting time for your old friends at Spartan Group.
Yeah.
Um, I heard that Citi is hiring 200 or 100 plus digital asset investment bankers. So it's weird, right? Because there's so much I don't know. I kind of thought of the market as there's still like that floor of institutional interest just in Paradigm and A16 alone. But you are seeing some pullback here on the private side. So maybe if you were to outline your view, where do you sit? Do you see it as more bearish or more bullish? Where do you sit, and what do you think are the bullish elements in the market and bearish ones? Obviously, macro is the bearish one, and maybe we got a bit ahead of our skis. But how do you think about that?
I think right now, like macro wise, like it's generally bearish all over. Like people are being scared of like this ongoing possible war with Russia. But like at the same time, like I think it's bad for the projects that are just cash grabby in nature. Like these guys that have like no experience, just trying to raise for crypto projects, and like you can definitely feel like when a founder is just looking to do a cash grab and that's being a profit maxi rather than doing something that's a public good that's beneficial to the overall community. So like, I'm seeing a lesser cash grabby projects, which is a good thing. It's just long term bullish for the space. And then I'm seeing more quality founders that are like that were waiting for the hype to die down a bit to like get into the space and like just properly build things that are gonna last generations. So I'm seeing a lot more quality, a lot more complex projects as well. So like we started off with just regular structured products, and now I'm seeing more exotic structured products come out, more more exotic derivatives, more exotic projects in general. I would say so. We're definitely seeing a growth in like the more complex side of things, and like just seeing more quality in the founders, more quality in like the idea behind things, I guess. So like I feel like it's long term, it's bullish because like when prices are going down, but like development is still going on, that's generally a good sign because like you want people that are there not for the money, but like more for like the development side of things.
That's really interesting. So it's kind of different from if there is a bear market, right? It'll be a different transition. Like the projects existing right now are so much more real than the ones that existed in that transition phase from 2018 or 2017 to 2018. Why do you think that is? Do they have users this time? Like, is there better product market fit?
So back then, 2018 to 2017, 2018, like back then, when every time ICOs happened as well, like ICOs were always being done in ETH. So like teams would just sell that ETH to like get the capital to like bootstrap their project. And like back then, DeFi wasn't really a thing, so there wasn't really much of a use case. It was really just speculation. Like I was seeing so many pitches for like decentralized Airbnbs, decentralized Ubers, and so on. Like that's not really those didn't really take off, and like but right now we're seeing a lot more use cases. Like people are using more for like DeFi, people are using more for NFTs. So like a lot more use cases for that. Like even games, a lot more infrastructure, a lot more tooling is being built. DAOs especially, like seeing a ton of DAO tooling projects pop up. And like there's a lot more eyes on it as well. So like there's always gonna be tools, there's always gonna be projects that can help build out. There's always gonna be projects that are gonna have utility, I would say. And like these are the ones that are really standing out right now. Like at the end of the day, like if I want to invest in a project, I want to be able to use the project. I want to be a user of the project first and foremost. If I'm not going to use it, I'm not going to invest in it. That's generally the way that I think about it as well.
Yeah, and I bet there wasn't a lot of that back in 2017.
2017, like you could
Use it. What about it? What am I going to use this for?
like most of the time that there was no project, there's no product out there. It's really just roadmaps. They're really just empty promises. Like it took Cardano until now to like finally release the DApp, for example, and like yeah, there's just a lot of empty promises back in 2018. which is different now. Like devs can ship out things like in a week. Like anon devs are like shipping out stuff in like a week, like already going live compared to like back in 2018 where they take like a year to like send out a roadmap update.
So let's maybe think about DAOs. I think this is one question I have about DAOs,
Mhm.
because we're going to have DAO month next month. We're going to bring on a bunch of DAOs. I'm a bit disappointed that we didn't figure out to do this in December, because then it could have been DAO-cember, but better late than never. Question is, why did it become almost reinvented, right? What about DAOs today are different from the way they've always been? And how did it all of a sudden become some sort of buzzword? Is it because instead of like building some pedantic blockchain project, we're now buying constitutions, or trying to? And so now it's this new thing, right? We can try to buy the Constitution or try to buy Mars.
I want to blame A16Z for bringing it up, but like I guess like
Well, I think we can blame A16Z for most things.
I guess you can say how like the narrative shift from like just calling crypto to becoming more Web3, that kind of approach also like brought in more normies as well. So like back then, I would say in the early days, DAOs were more really just investment focused DAOs. Like for example, like Metacartel, they were looking to like investing in newer projects, providing grants for new projects, and like that's not really something that a lot of people are interested in. That's like a lot of people aren't really interested in the investing side of things. So like as this Web3 narrative grew, like a lot more inclusivity DAOs came out. Like for
Yeah.
example, like DAOs with culture, like Friends with Benefits, for example, Pleaser DAO, which is collecting artwork that are like monumental, as well as just like in general, like developer DAO as well, like just DAOs where people can hang out and like feel included in things. Like just having a community of people to hang out with online has been much more rampant now, especially since COVID as well. Like people just want a place to like hang out with their friends, and like having a DAO, it seems to be like the cool way to do it right now. So that's my take on things on why like DAO suddenly blew up this round. Like not just having much more use cases, much more market compared to just investments, and also like just being more inclusive as well.
I think another word we can use is relatable.
Yeah. So like, for example, like NFT space brought in a lot more attention, but like after NFTs, like people were thinking, okay, I'm collecting NFTs. Can I do it with my friends? So okay, let's make an NFT collecting DAO with my friends, and then they all just like hang out in that DAO as well. So like we're seeing a lot more, way more normie attention on like NFT stuff, on DAO stuff.
I think we need two different categories, or we need to come up with two distinct verbiage to describe the normie DAOs from what just is a DAO, because I think they're kind of getting a bit bunched together.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of like whatever that is in crypto is like a DAO right now. Like there's you're seeing governance tokens like they're considered DAO. You're seeing like these social groups, they're also considered a DAO. There's all kinds of like everyone is just slapping on the word DAO on their group. So it's very hard to like differentiate, like very hard to like come up with a word for it, I guess.
But are they? What makes what like are there is there some purity test that we can invoke to test a DAO's downess?
And that was downers. I guess one way is like seeing whether if their chief operator, for example, goes down, like if he goes to jail or whatever, what happens to the group in general. Like that's one that's it's a bit dark, but like that's one way to think about it. Like
What if he gets eaten by a shark? Will the DAO survive?
yeah, exactly. Like will this
That's
will
kind of a gruesome way of looking at it.
will one person getting disappearing change the nature of a DAO, and that's something that's I think really is important as well. Like you don't want to be reliant on one person. Yeah, that's one way I think about it as well.
I
And
think
like
that's no. I think it's a good way of thinking about it. Okay, so if someone disappears, and the DAO lives on, but that's a hard thing to measure. You can't, like, even still. I think that's well said, and I think a lot of people would agree with you. But how do you? I don't know. This might be getting too far down the DAO bit hole. But you can't really measure that. You can't look at a project and at least originally and suss out in a mechanical way the extent to which someone matters.
Mhm.
But but then I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud. All of these simp DAOs, like that is inherently tied to the person. So
Yeah.
are they? Those can't really. Are those really DAOs? Maybe they are. If I created Frank DAO, okay, and I disappeared, then there you go.
It
That would
would
be the end of it.
though, like for example, like all these celebrities that passed away, like people are still fans of the celebrities even if they passed away. Like so, like if let's say for example, like there's a Frank Dow and something happens to you, if
Gigabrain. That's Gigabrain.
still like, fans of you would still be supportive. Like they might even be more. There might be even be more fans after you disappear.
It might be even bigger if I disappear.
For example, yeah.
That's a fantastic point. That's brilliant. Okay, so let's think about maybe we can leak some alpha and think about maybe where you see over or under index value out there in the market. What are people maybe not paying attention to that you're super keen about?
I'm seeing. I mean, I've always been a fan of DeFi projects because like we're seeing right now, for example, in Canada, like the banks are saying that they can seize assets, they can freeze assets. So like the narrative of being your own bank is really becoming more rampant. And like right now, like back then there wasn't much infrastructure, there wasn't much composability between DeFi applications. So like this is an area that I've always been massively bullish on because like I come from Malaysia, which is like a third world country. So like there's not always the best. There's very limited things that I can do with capital here. But like with DeFi, I'm able to do anything that I want, and like that's something that a lot more people will have access to. That's an area that I've always been paying close attention to as well. And then another thing is that earning yields as well. Like we're seeing inflations creep up almost almost every once in a while, and like I think people are always trying to find the best ways to like save money, to like beat inflation or like just try to make more money, more than what inflation is causing us. So like seeing more use cases for yield farming, not just yield farming, but like earning yields. So for example, like seeing more structured products, seeing more option vaults, seeing more farming DAOs, and like just that's one area. And there's also like another area that I'm looking at is the utilities in NFTs. So like for example, like seeing projects that unlock liquidity of NFTs, seeing more projects that can price NFTs better as well, like allowing someone to use NFTs as collateral. That's an area that I'm interested in because like my belief is that the wealth in crypto will always stay in crypto. It's not going to go back out to like fiat. It's not going to go out to like people. Like a lot more of my friends would rather buy a house in the metaverse than buy a house in real life, and that's just the mindset that a lot of them have. So I think that have allowing someone to like properly use this NFTs that they have as collateral is going to be something that's game changing. And then that's another area that I'm looking at also is gaming as well. Like I mentioned this in another podcast, but like I think the best games in the future are still being ideated, still being built right now. It's not already raised and going live.
It's early days.
Yeah, it's still very early days for gaming. We're seeing like the games right now that exist, they aren't the best games, they aren't the most fun games. So I want to see something that really brings in a lot of people and that is cost efficient as well. Like getting into Axie back in the peak was like 600 to like maybe $1,000 to get to make a team, and like I don't think that's accessible for people to for retail to come in. Like if I want to play a game on Steam, the maximum that I have to pay is like what, maybe less than $100. So like it doesn't make sense for me to like pay this crypto game for like one few $1,000s. So that's something that I think is important, and that's gonna bring in more people into the space as well.
That's interesting. So you mentioned in your delineation of what you're maybe excited for, farming DAOs.
Yeah. So
Let's
like
walk through the listener what that is. They already have already had to get caught up to speed on what yield farming is. Some of the TradFi boomer listeners, now they have to wrap their mind around farming DAO.
so the way that I think about it is more like just looking at like DAOs that like provide farming as a service. So for example, like you're putting capital into this DAO, and then this DAO will decide how they want to manage capital, like efficiently earn yield on the deposits. So like it's kind of like a yield asset manager. For example, like Yearn, it's really just depositing capital into that strategy, and then the strategy will earn yields for you. So that's my take on that. So like I'm seeing a lot more projects being raised to like make DeFi simple. Where for example, like if you are a company and you have a treasury, you can just deposit into these protocols instead and earn better yields than what your banks are giving you. So that's something that I think will get a lot more attention in, because like the infrastructure, the composability is all being built already. Like it's much more convenient now compared to like back a year ago, 2 years ago.
Joe Weisenthal at Bloomberg brings this up a lot when
Yeah.
he thinks about DeFi, and I think specifically yield farming. There's nothing, in traditional capital markets, you do a you raise debt to go build a factory if you're some sort of shoe manufacturer, and so you get a yield as the person facilitating, or rather contributing to that debt raise, right? You get a payout, and it's going to something constructive. When you look at crypto, there's nothing tangible there that's kind of behind this, gyrating force of capital movement. So to kind of lay that foundation, what is there anything productive that is yielded from, or sort of derives from, these yield generating farms? Like what is it creating, right?
Hmm.
Is
Wait,
the answer nothing?
let me think how to answer that. I guess there's always going to be another buyer. There's always a buyer of these tokens out there. So as long as automated market makers have made it easier to have this buy support as well, like there's always going to be a buyer in Uniswap, for example, when you want to sell something. So like there's always there's that about bias in the space, I guess, for yield tokens. Like the way yield farming works is really a project is giving out their tokens to incentivize users to come board, and like through giving out their tokens, they will, as a result, they'll get more eyes on the protocol, and another is just more marketing in general, because like people will be talking about how they're farming yields on this project, for example, and like people will take a look at it because people will use the protocol because of that as well. And like so that it's kind of like a growth hack in a way, like giving out tokens compared to like just having no tokens comparatively.
You definitely don't want to have no tokens.
I think everything that can have a token will have a token eventually. Just how the space is going along, because the regulations aren't the most friendly to
Mhm.
projects out there. So like decentralizing your project away is always one way to like avoid regulation, in some sense.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, I'm still thinking how to best answer that question. But yeah, difficult question.
Any closing thoughts? I mean, this was really fun. I've been waiting to do this for ages. Um, Hopefully it'll come out relatively soon. Darren, any closing thoughts to leave the listener with, to get them thinking, as they may be, well, I don't know if it'll come out on a Friday before the weekend, but to just get them thinking in general.
I guess in general, like one thing that I've always asked friends that are looking to get into space is that one is that what is their end goal? Like why do you want to get into crypto? Is it because you wanna so I've always felt like there's two groups of people in crypto. One is the group that just wants to make money and just wants to make it. Another group is people that want to be a part of something, want to leave an impact or something. So you're seeing people that are flipping shit coins, people that are just trying to make 2x's, trying to make it stack and like retire. That's one big goal of people. Another is just the people that are building out tools, building out infrastructures, building out culture, inclusivity into the space as well, for it to be more long term oriented. So that's another group of people out there. So like which group are you a part of? Like and like and there's nothing wrong with just wanting to make a retirement stack. But at the end of the day, like after you make that retirement stack, what are you gonna do next? Because retirement isn't the best thing to do. Like it's not the most fun thing. But like so like what do you want to do after that as well? So like thinking about why you're getting into crypto, thinking about what you're gonna do after you make it as well is one thing that I've always asked these people, and like seeing whether I can like nudge them towards towards a good direction is something that I've been trying to do. Another thing is that I see a lot of people like trying to break into the space, but they don't really know how to break into the space. So like really just finding a project that you like, finding a DAO that is interesting are some ways to get involved, or even just shit posting on Twitter, just being a reply guy to some of the bigger accounts there is also one way to get involved. Like the best thing about crypto is there's no restrictions. Like you can be a kid from Africa, you can be a kid from the US. Like no one cares where you're from, no one cares about your age as long as you're contributing to space. Really, like Paradigm just hired a high school kid.
I
I think
know.
that just goes to show like people care a lot about what you do rather than who you are in the space.
I think that's a really salient point. Well, Darren, where can our listeners follow you, learn more about what you're working on?
Yeah, so the best way to follow me is on Twitter, Darren Lau TF on Twitter, and if you want to message me, do message me on Telegram instead. My Twitter DMs are like messed up, crazy messed up. So Telegram is the same as my Twitter. It's Darren Lau TF there as well. And if you want to just read up on what's happening in crypto daily, just feel free to follow my Telegram channel as well. It's called the Daily Ape. So those are the three places that I would recommend to like reach out to me. So Twitter, my Twitter, my Telegram, and the Daily Ape. And the Daily Ape has three things. So it's not just a Telegram channel, but like, I also have like a Notion bot where I basically it's like a database of everything that is in crypto that I've posted so far. So that there's always rabbit holes that you can dive into on that Notion board. And then another one is a HR group that I just recently launched. It's basically a group for two types of people. One is projects that are looking to hire, and another is people that are looking for roles in the space. So I think the problem with like most job boards previously was that it's really just projects looking to hire. Like there was no way for someone to like showcase their resume, no place for someone to showcase that they're looking for a job. So I'm trying to create that place for someone to like promote themselves in a way. So just an experiment for now, but seeing how it goes. I have helped some friends get jobs through there already, so that's always a good sign. Since I just launched it like a week ago.
That's super cool. Well, congrats on that. And thank you again for being on the show. It was a real pleasure.
Hey, appreciate it, Frank.
The Scoop will be back with you again with another fantastic guest. Everyone, have an amazing day and thank you for joining us.